So for this video, I'm going to be going over some reading stats. And specifically, I'm going to be looking at some reading stats from 2024 and kind of comparing them to my reading stats from 2023. This will not be super comprehensive, but I'll be going over some basic stuff, such like number of books read, number of pages read, number of DNFs, number of rereads, and then my ratings, not including rereads and including rereads and only rereads. We'll get into all that stuff and then some genre stuff as well. So we'll get into all that good stuff. Like I said, it's not going to be super comprehensive, but I'll try to get some of the basic stuff in here. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So first off, before I jump into either 2024 or 2023, I do think it's very interesting that I attempted the same amount of books in both years. And what I mean by that is that I either finished or DNF'd the same amount of books. So for 2023 and 2024, I attempted 158 books. And the difference is that in 2024, I managed to finish 136 books, which was actually a little bit down from the previous year, 2023, when I finished 148 books. And the reason for that is that I DNF'd 22 books in 2024 versus in 2023 when I only DNF'd 10 books. So 2023, I managed to finish 12 more books than in 2024, and I DNF'd 12 more books this year, or 2024 versus 2023. So I finished less books and I DNF'd more books. And the main reason for that is because November and December, in each of those months, I DNF'd 5 books because I was just doing a whole lot of mood reading, jumping into books that I might not have picked up, if I wasn't just kind of randomly scourging my shelves for stuff to read. But yeah, that led to varied results, and I ended up DNFing a lot of books. Because before that, like in 2024, the first 10 months or so, I'd only DNF'd, I think, 12 books, which was kind of on par for 2023, maybe a little bit more. But then just November and December came, and I became the DNF king, apparently. So yeah, I did not finish as many books as I did last year, but still overall very good number. I normally try to hit at least 120. That way I'm reading like 10 books a month, which is pretty good. So I at least hit that mark. In 2024, I actually did manage to read more pages, and I do count the pages in the books that I DNF. So if I DNF'd a book like 100 pages in, I still count those 100 pages as read, because why not? So in 2024, I managed to read 59,000 and a half. 59,500 pages versus in 2023 when I read 55,000. So I guess that means I'm reading longer books, if that maths, because it's the same amount of attempts, and I actually finished less books. So yeah, I think that means that I read longer books, which makes sense because I reread all of Stormlight and read Wind and Truth, which is one of the longest books I've ever read. So that only makes sense. I wonder if, I didn't look into this, but I wonder if I got rid of those Stormlight Archive books, because that's like easily 6,000 pages or more. So yeah, that's quite a lot. But anyway, getting into more of the star ratings, because each year I did read a lot of books, but let's see what the disparity is between my ratings. So in 2024, out of the books that I read, because I don't rate my DNFs, by the way, so those DNFs don't count in this rating at all. In 2024, I read 136 books with an overall rating of 3.91, which was actually a slight improvement on 2023 when I read 148 books and my overall rating was 3.85. So not much of a disparity, really. It's basically the same. Like, I don't think it would be statistically significant, but I do think it's interesting. I thought my rating would actually be a bit higher in 2024 because the amount of rereads that I had was way higher in 2024 versus 2023. So in 2024, I had 33 rereads. And normally, of course, rereads, if you're rereading a book, you're probably enjoying it. That's why you're rereading it. So I thought my rating would be higher because in 2023, one of my goals was to reread less books, which, looking back, that's kind of dumb because I love to reread. But I only reread 12 books in 2023. So I thought my rating for 2024 would be way up because a lot of my rereads I gave like 4.5, 5 stars to. And I did the math. I might be a little bit off here and there, but I did the math in 2023 for my non-reread. So the books that I read for the first time, overall, I gave those books on average 3.8 stars. So not far off from the actual average of 3.85. And then when you look at the 12 rereads, the average was 4.6, which makes sense because all my rereads I do enjoy for the most part. But then if we look at 2024, my non-rereads, the average was 3.7. So a little bit down from 2023. So I was enjoying my first time reads slightly less this year. And I do think that I am being a bit more picky with giving out 4.5 and 5-star reads. I'm sure if I went back and look at the stats for 2023, I probably gave out more 5 stars than I did in 2024, not including rereads, of course. And then with 2024, my overall rating for rereads was 4.56, basically the same as 2023. I usually tend to very much enjoy my rereads. So, very interesting. Not too far off, like I said. The overall average rating was 3.91 for 2024. And then my average rating for 2023 was 3.85. So pretty similar, a little bit up. I thought, like I said, it would be a bit higher because I reread 33 books. But yeah, I think overall, I think I was just being a bit more stingy with my ratings in 2024. So my non-rereads went down a little bit. But overall, still a very solid and successful reading year for me. I can go ahead and look at the different star ratings that I gave out. So in 2024, I gave, I know this because I did my top books of the year. I only gave 8 new books 5 stars, but overall I gave out 24 5 stars. So most of those, what's the math? 16 of those books were rereads. So I probably knew those were going to be 5 stars anyway, but only 8 of them new to me were 5 stars, which is not very much. And then 21 was 4.5 stars. Probably a good mix of those were new to me and rereads. 43 4 stars, 3.5 or 23.5 stars, 16 3 stars, 6 2.5 stars, and 6 2 stars. No 1.5 or 1 stars, thank God, because I DNF'd a lot of those books probably. If I would have finished some of those, they probably maybe would have gotten those low ratings, but I'm just kind of over it now. If I'm not enjoying a book, I'm going to DNF it. So yeah, overall, pretty solid skew there, like good amount of 5 and 4.5s, and then a decent amount of 3.5 and 3s, and then a lot of 4s. And then thankfully not too many 2.5 stars and 2 stars. And then I haven't looked at this in a while, but I'm going to look at my star ratings for 2023. I actually gave out 17 5-star ratings, which makes sense because it's probably, I reread a lot less books. So to get 17 5 stars and not have that many rereads, pretty good. And then 22 4.5-star rereads, 52 4-star rereads. So the bell curve is looking pretty similar here. 28 3.5 stars, that's quite a big number. And then 23 stars, or 20 books I gave 3 stars to, make more sense. And then 5 for 2.5 stars, and then 4 for 2 stars, and then 0, 1.5, or 1 stars, and then 10 DNFs. So it would be interesting to go see how many books I gave 5 stars to that weren't rereads. I have to look that up real quick. So it looks like I gave 12 books 5 stars that weren't rereads, which means I gave 5 of my rereads 5 stars. Interesting. So I was definitely more stingy with my 5-star reads in 2024, which makes sense. Hopefully in 2025 here, I can have a lot more 5 stars. I've already given out 1 this year for Small Mercies. So far, I mean, I haven't given out any other 5 stars, so technically that's my favorite book of the year, but it's only January, so we've got a long way to go here. But yeah, interesting star ratings there. Now, I want to go jump into genres to see if there's any big disparity between the genres that I was reading this year, or in 2024, last year, and then 2023. I don't think it'll be that skewed. Usually, like, my big genres are fantasy, thriller, and horror, and then a little bit of sci-fi, maybe some mystery, maybe some middle grade, because I love to read Sonnenblick. But I think basically those are like my big genres. So we'll see what the data says. So in 2024, my top read genre was actually horror, which is pretty interesting. I thought it would be fantasy, but I read a lot of horror, which makes sense. 27% of my reads were horror compared to 25% fantasy. So that's 52%, like more than half of my reads were either horror or fantasy. So definitely my top 2 genres. Be interesting to see what 2023 looks like. And then after that, thriller at 16%, definitely makes sense. And then the next biggest one is sci-fi at 9.5, basically 10%, so pretty good chunk there. And then 8.2% contemporary, so just fiction. That's interesting. And then some other notable ones are mystery. I did read a few nonfiction books, so that's interesting. And then like barely anything for like classic or humor, magical realism, historical. So basically my 3 main genres: horror, fantasy, and thriller, and then a little bit of sci-fi and just general fiction. And then if we compare that to 2023, I think probably I read more fantasy that year, but we shall see. So yeah, fantasy was 27%, and then horror was 23.5%. So basically the same thing, like just about half is fantasy horror, but turns out in 2024 I read slightly more horror than fantasy, whereas in 2023 I read slightly more fantasy than horror. Be interesting to see what 2025 looks like, because I'm definitely slotted to read a lot of horror and a lot of fantasy, so it'll be interesting. And then obviously thriller, 17%, basically the same. I read more sci-fi in 2023, 12% as compared to like 9.5%. So read a little less sci-fi, and which kind of sucks because I had planned on reading a lot of Tchaikovsky in 2024, and that didn't really pan out. So maybe I can pick up more sci-fi in 2025, maybe bump that up a little bit. And then fiction, like contemporary, was down a bit, only 5.7, so 6%, down a little bit there. And then mystery in 2023 was 6%, so I think that went down a little bit. It's kind of hard to really, I don't know what the distinction is really, mystery, thriller. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look what books I marked as mystery. And then other ones, like I barely read any nonfiction, magical realism, humor, classic. And then I have one historical, no idea what that book was for 2023. But yeah, basically genre breakdown. My 2 big ones are fantasy and horror. So in 2023, I read slightly more fantasy than horror. And then last year, I read slightly more horror than fantasy. So it'll be interesting to see what the breakdown looks like in 2025. And then obviously thriller and sci-fi and mystery. And then a little bit of fiction, contemporary. Kind of most of what I read, so that makes sense. I think it's also interesting to look at the breakdown by month, because there's definitely certain months when I read a lot more, and then there's certain months when I read a lot less. So it's interesting to see the breakdowns of that. Obviously, a lot of these are skewed because we do have readathons that take place over on the Book Astronomer Discord. Go sign up using the link below. So if we break it down by month here, April, 21 books, either I think read or attempted, because I think some of these count DNFs, but I was reading a lot in April. That's mainly because of the Battle of the Bands readathon. Same thing for July, another Battle of the Bands, 21 books attempted and or read. And yeah, that's a lot. And then October was our Stephen King readathon, but for that one, I only read 11 because we got bonuses for reading longer books, and I definitely I think I read 3,000 page books that month, so it's definitely going to be less than 20. And then for November, it's 21 attempted, but 5 of those were DNFs. So I think I actually only finished 16, but that's still quite a lot. And then it's also interesting to see that in March, I only attempted 6 books. That's mainly because that's the month me and Stacy got married. So we had a lot of planning to do for that and a lot of celebrating to do and just didn't get a lot of reading done that month. So that makes perfect sense. And then basically the rest of the months are kind of equal. January, though, I got off to a great start, starting at least 16 books. But then the rest of them are kind of, like 11 in February, 8 in May, 10 in June, 12 in August, 9 in September, 11 in October, and then 12 in December. Although, like I mentioned, 5 DNFs in December, so I actually finished 7 books, which one of them was Wind and Truth, so that counts as like at least 3 books. But yeah, overall, kind of even display. What am I even trying to say? Good Lord. Overall, the months are pretty even, except for the months, obviously, when I'm doing readathons or the months when I'm busy getting married, apparently. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what 2023 looked like. Obviously, I think the months with the readathons are going to be the most, but it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the years look like. So, April 2023, 22 books, pretty good. July, 17. So maybe I didn't quite get to all the prompts, but still reading a ton of books. And then 20 for the Stephen King readathon, definitely a factor there. And then apparently I hit a wall in November and only read 4. So, damn. And then there were a couple months here and there when I read a bunch. Apparently January is a good month for me, which makes sense because already in 2025 I've read 9 books, and I think it's January 15th, so I'm like only halfway through the month. I've already read 9 books, so January is a good month for me, apparently. And then February, drop off to 9. March got 15, pretty good. May was 9. June was 14, pretty good. August was 11. September was 10. And like I said, November, what was happening in November when I only read 4 books? I don't know. But you know what? Maybe that's when me and Stacy were trying to figure out immigration stuff because we were planning on getting married and we had to figure all that out. So that took a lot of planning. So that's probably what that was. And then December was 11, so pretty average. So yeah, pretty interesting to look back and see the monthly breakdown of the stats there. But I think that's going to do it for me. So overall, 2024 was pretty similar to 2023. I think the main difference really was that I reread way more books. Like I reread 33 books compared to 12. So, and that's going to continue because we are doing the Stephen King book club, and all of those besides Never Flinch in May are going to be rereads. And there's probably some other stuff I'm going to reread as well. I love rereading. Like, I love picking up a book that I'm already invested in and I already know I'm going to enjoy. I know a lot of people don't do that, but for me, I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So that will continue here. And the other big difference was DNFs. I DNF'd 22 books in 2024. Most of that came in the last 2 months of the year. November and December, I DNF'd 10 books. Before that, like I was on pace of DNFing about 1, maybe 2 books a month. But yeah, at this point, if I pick up a book and I'm not actively enjoying it, I'm gonna chuck it. I'm gonna DNF it. I'm gonna unhaul it. Get the hell out of here. I only have time to read books that I'm actively enjoying. So that's a big difference. But so far in January, I have 0 DNFs. I've basically enjoyed most of the books that I've read. So hopefully I pick up better books. But yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think of all these stats. Also, let me know what other stats you want me to track. I think in 2025, I'm going to keep track of my audiobook hours. And I think that's important because I almost exclusively listen to audiobooks. I do some physical reading for stuff that I either like to physically read or stuff that doesn't have a great audiobook or it's not available. So I do physically read occasionally, but most of the time I'm doing audiobooks. And when I track the pages, I usually just go on Amazon, or if I have a physical edition, I'll just track the paperback count, and that's how I keep track of everything. That's how I got my 59,500 pages for 2024, even though a lot of what I did is either immersion reading or just doing the audiobook. So I think from now on, I'm going to track those audiobook hours and see how many hours I'm listening every month. And then obviously translate that into pages, because I still like to keep track of pages. So I'm going to do that. And then if there's anything else you guys want me to track for next year's stats video, or like a mid-year, do you guys want me to do like a mid-year check-in for stats? Leave all of your comments and suggestions down below, and I'll try to keep track of those. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel here and the Book of Stormer Discord, where, like I've mentioned, we've got tons of buddy reads and read-alongs, including the Stephen King Book Club, which is going strong with different seasons. Next month, we're going to be checking out From a Buick 8. Not one of Stephen King's most popular books, but it'll be fun to check out, especially for a lot of people who haven't read this book before. I remember liking it and enjoying it. I did have some complaints with it, but it'll be interesting to see what you guys think. But anyway, I also have my Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. And I have my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.